Yes.
Oh, welcome. Another day. I want to say another dollar, but it's cold outside. This is Adolph Mongo. Welcome to Detroit Black and White. Vanessa Moss is traveling today. She won't be here, but we got a special guest, Justice of the Supreme Court, State Supreme Court. Bernstein.
Yes, I am here, and I am excited to be here. I have to say, I wish people could picture how cool this is. We're, here we are at Michigan and Trumbull, the old Tiger Stadium.
Right.
And I got to tell you, we're in a fabulous location. I love this. What would you call it? A sports bar? Or
It's
like
a
a
sports
bar.
It's
Yeah,
got
Irish.
great, doesn't it just have a great feel to it? You know what I mean? Like,
yeah, it's great. The people that work here great. The only drawback is I think the owner, he's a tough old cookie named Bob Roberts. And we thank Bob for letting us come here and do our show. Allan Lengel,
It's James in Michigan and Trumbull.
Jim Nardone. How
but
you
it's just
doing?
got that
Doing well,
feeling.
Good.
Hasn't it got that feeling in up? Like, you just feel at home in a place like this.
If you
Part of the
if you like
neighborhood.
sports, if you like some good food, if you like the
Irish
drink,
whiskey.
you like to do your thing, hey, this is the place. It's
you-
cold.
And you could get a ride to the Lions game from here.
Hey,
There you go.
Jim, did you have a hard time getting here from Trent?
Wasn't too bad. It's a little icy.
What about you, Judge?
No, Alan and I came together and we were on a mission.
He
so,
took an Uber to my place in Midtown, and then we came here.
yeah, so
Roads are okay.
Okay.
a
Roads
little
are okay
icy,
right
but
now.
we didn't want to miss it. So you know what? We were gonna do it no matter what.
Okay, well, let's get going.
Eric Brown,
Okay, Eric, how you doing?
sometimes co-host,
Right.
sometimes guest. Sure.
Let's start with you. Your outrage.
My
of the
outrage
week.
of the week.
Okay.
My outrage of the week. I wanted to talk about, and I'd rather just play the video where Trump is trying to say that he has immunity from everything. And they asked him in the Court of Appeals, they asked the lawyer, they said, so he hires a Navy SEAL guy to kill his political opponent. Is that okay? And the lawyer basically said, well, first he has to get impeached. Then you can charge him after he's no longer president. So they say, but he has to get impeached first. So they say, well, so if he quits before he gets impeached, does he get away with it? I mean, it's just, so here's Stephen Colbert, which I think is a brilliant little take on this whole thing. I'm going to play this video.
Quality family joke. Now, after the hearing, Trump's other lawyers tried to push back on the horror of what had been argued in court, starting with Trump attorney and lawyer grown from a cheek scraping of Melania, Alina Habba. Habba went on Fox News to say that the judge took their arguments way too logically.
It is hypothetical after hypothetical of extreme situations that are not the current situation.
Yes! The president sending an assassin to kill his political rivals and then claiming presidential immunity is such an extreme hypothetical. Let's stick to reality, where all Trump did was send a mob to kill his vice president and then claim immunity.
I think that's brilliant. I wish he could have argued the case in the Court of Appeals there. I mean, it really brings home just the absurdity of we didn't create a constitution that gave the president just total powers to do it. I mean, unless you're Saddam Hussein, where you get to kill, thousands and thousands of your own people. There's some type of, we're trying to hang on to democracy here. And, some people think that's over dramatic, but I think it's real. I think it's a real thing. So,
well, you know what? Trump is Trump. And there you have it.
He's dangerous.
And his attorneys, when are they going to start punishing some of these attorneys? I got several in my family, and they're pretty good attorneys. But some of these nuts that they find, and now he has to pay $400,000 to the New York Times for a frivolous lawsuit.
right.
Yeah,
I mean, it's just, look, when you think about a guy who has taxed our court system, I mean, a guy who's taxed our court system at that level. I mean, look, he's everywhere. The justice system. Think about the millions and millions of dollars, and it's also what was it? Somebody said MAGA is make somebody get an attorney.
I like that. And plus, he was serving as a consultant to China and other foreign governments. He was getting paid. Man, this guy does everything. Yeah. But we can talk about your best friend Trump because he's in your head, like I said.
He rent free,
right? But anyway, Jim, your outrage of the week.
First, I have a message for Chief James White. I don't know if he'll get this message or not, but Chief White, I'm not trying to sell newspapers. I'm not trying to garner clicks. But when you have a police officer, a captain that you just recently promoted, goes and allegedly beats his wife after he's been intoxicated and has a little incident, and he's out driving your police car, probably carrying your handgun, be accountable. All right. Don't make Ross Jones and Deadline Detroit make you accountable. Be accountable.
Okay.
What actually happened there?
A captain was arrested for domestic violence on his wife.
Behind.
He was drinking. He even, and likely what's going to happen, they didn't give him any alcohol tests. So he's likely not going to face charges for the alcohol. In the end, his wife is also a police officer who's probably not going to be convicted of domestic violence.
I'm going to tell you, that's a nightmare scenario. Both of them drinking, they could shoot each other up.
Well, she was home. I don't know whether she was drinking, but I want to give credit to Ross Jones, and who's a real leader that was with the Detroit Police Department is Ricardo Moore, who I met just a couple years ago. Ricardo Moore came out when they promoted this man to captain. He had 56 citizen complaints, but the chief went on to the panel and said he hasn't had a citizen complaint since 2017. Well, you know why that is? Because he hasn't been on the road since 2017. More than likely.
Wow. And what would you have done in a situation like that if you're as police chief?
You can't do anything.
Well, I think as a captain, he's an appointee, and he demoted him immediately back to lieutenant, which is probably a protected job, a union protected job. I'm not sure. I don't know if there's any Detroit guys out there.
I think so, yeah, because they used to. Well, they changed the structure of the ranks when I worked for Coleman Young, because they used to, you could be promoted, appointed to deputy chief and commander, etc. But then when the mayor was pissed at you, he can put you down to your permanent rank. That's lieutenant.
More than likely, right? Which is the union probably protected position.
Yes, it is. Justice Bernstein.
Yes, sir.
Your outrage of the week. Yeah, you here? You sitting here? Come on. You're not getting away.
Judges
it could be anything.
It can be anything.
Anything. You could talk about the weather. You don't have to be political.
Well, I like to be kind of more positive. Like that's the thing. I don't like to be really outraged. I like to try to find the good in people. Like I just enjoy hanging out with Adolph and being with you guys. And so my perspective is, and I hope you don't see this cop out, I try to look at things in a positive light, a positive way. And so, instead of being outraged, I think we can focus on the fact that U of M won the national championship. That's
some people are outraged.
I can imagine there might be some people. Well, okay, we can get into that, which is actually kind of interesting. So you got the U of M game, and then we have the Lions. And then also, like I say, is that what I like is I just had a chance to make 3 new friends today. So as far as I'm concerned, I think that folks are, it can be tiring always looking for an outrage. Sometimes it's nice to find something decent or positive that we can try to feel good about.
Okay.
It's a total cop-out because judges just can't. If we get into outrages of the week, then we got to recuse ourselves from everything. So anything, if I say this is an outrage, if it comes before you, then they're going to recuse you.
Okay.
So
I heard you, Detroit black and white. And you step down. Anyway.
It'd be good publicity for Detroit black and white.
Right.
It would be. It would be.
My outrage is the basketball fans in Chicago, the Detroit Bulls. The late Jerry Krause, the general manager, he was a lightning rod for people either loved him or hated him. He's been dead since 2017. They honored him and the Bulls championship teams, the Ring of Honor, some like their Hall of Fame type stuff.
Right.
They booed him. They booed him. Guy been dead 6-7 years.
Why they
And
boo
his
him?
family, cuz why would you, if you honoring somebody, they not there to defend themselves. They passed away 7 years ago. And the team is honoring them. They booed him. His wife and kids and grandkids were sitting up there.
What was his negative?
Because he was a real asshole.
He dismantled
but he built
built
the
the
team.
team.
He built the team.
and then he dismantled.
And then
it. Lightning rod. He was kind of the Adolph Mongo of Chicago.
Oh, wow.
Right.
What did you mean about Michigan cheating? Like, what did you mean about?
They still in the sign.
Yeah, but you know what that was really about? Michigan was able to travel to other games away, and the rule is, I guess, in the college games is because smaller colleges can't afford to travel but it's a ridiculous allegation, really. I think.
What is it? Was the allegation that they were
they were studying the signs, figuring out plays and stuff like that. But you can do that at watching TV. You can. Obviously you're going to see more on the sidelines when you're watching.
You Michigan State fan defending you?
I grew up a Michigan fan, and then I went to Michigan State, so I still am both. MSU plays U of M, I'll root for MSU. But other than that, I was into the Michigan. I'm rooting. I'm not like one of these Michigan State fans who goes, I hate Michigan. I don't care. I have friends like that. They're like, I hate Michigan. I hope they lose. I'm like, it's a Michigan team. I mean, we're all,
Well, people take this shit so seriously.
so
tribal.
tribal.
I was in Columbus, Ohio, when the U of M basketball team played Louisville for the NCAA championship. I'm the only one in the bar room for Michigan. All these Ohio State folks, man, they hate Michigan. I mean, you think, okay, I don't like the team, but they take it like they want to kill people. It's like they get a life.
What was
I went to watch a game once. A good buddy of mine went to MSU with a couple of us. Went up there to watch a U of M MSU game years ago. MSU got killed, and then we were driving down Grand River in East Lansing, and my friend is like, who lives there, is like, you saw the U of M people wearing all this stuff. And he's like, we should get out of the car and kick their asses. I looked at him, I go, what are you, an idiot? What are you doing? We're adults. What are you talking about?
Well,
passionate.
Yeah.
But with the sign dispute, that's over, right?
Yeah. I mean, he was suspended for, Harbaugh was suspended for
that game.
Yeah, it was.
The university suspended him, not the NCAA.
Oh, really?
Yeah, right. And the Big Ten.
The Big Ten.
Right. Aaron, by the way, a comment, Aaron Mish. Nice to see Mr. Bernstein, a very respectable person. So
Oh, that's nice.
You paid her.
Yeah.
Probably.
He's got everybody.
There'll be a
We're gonna have
lunch.
all through the.
Yeah, there'll be a lunch coming.
Yeah,
So there'll be
yeah.
but that matter's been completely resolved, right? The
No,
issue of
No.
the signage.
No.
What, they're still investigating it, or
Yeah, they're doing whatever they're doing. They can't take away what they did. They won. They're the best for this year. And
It's over.
Yeah,
It's done.
Let's
Seal it.
let's move on. Lions lose Sunday. It's gone. It's done. Enjoy it while you can.
Did you say something?
Yes.
Thanks to Kenneth. Kenneth has weighed in on the.
what about we gotta be more positive though? Like,
Well, I'm not a positive person.
Right,
Yeah,
you're on the
yes.
wrong show. You want positivity?
Hey,
wow,
we
you
not on
don't
the
think
first-
you don't think tomorrow's gonna be a big game?
I
or
don't
a
like
big-
the Lions.
You don't like the Lions?
Yes.
Why?
Let me count the ways.
Well, share. Can you share? Because now I'm kind of interested. Like,
Never liked the Lions.
why?
The worst ownership
Okay.
in history.
Okay.
And now, they might prove me wrong. They might win a playoff game. And how they treated Barry Sanders, how they treated Calvin Johnson, how they just, what? There was a lion, an ex-lion. He was talking one day. He was being interviewed. He said Detroit had got a reputation as a place where coaches and players come to die. But
that's
they come here
changed.
for money.
Yeah, but
They
look,
they came
they've
here
got
for
a
the
general
money.
manager who's doing a phenomenal job. They've got a great coach. They've got the right owner, the right person in the Ford family. Fine, look, William Clay Ford was a great guy, but you know what? He was a guy. If he just liked you, he kept you around. So he had some of the worst general managers. They were horrible. And some of they had some bad coaches, but they finally have gotten it together. I think they're a good managed team now.
And for all the viewers that are enjoying my Detroit Dye House, Detroit Lions attire here, right next door here in Corktown, right next door. So
And I have to say, Barry Sanders is a really good guy. A really
He
good
sure
guy.
is.
Oh, I want to tell you something.
Well,
He is such a good guy. Just a real class act, and he's the kind of guy. He's just a wonderful.
Why didn't the Lions
person.
do for Barry Sanders what Coach did for Andrew Luck? Andrew Luck retired because of injuries, and he had just signed this big contract, and they said, "Thanks for your service. You keep the money." Lions took Barry Sanders to court. It's like, give me back some of the bonus. It's like.
Was it Barry Sanders or what
Barry
the
Sanders.
receiver?
Calvin Johnson. Both of them.
Both
Both of them.
Okay.
Yeah.
I knew Calvin
Here,
Johnson.
Calvin
That
Johnson
was
played
shady
hurt.
the way they treated him.
Played, yeah. That's what I'm looking at the Lions. It's like,
But I have to say, if anyone's met Barry Sanders, they would say he is a class act. He did some of my old firm's TV commercials, and he is just a wonderful.
he's a good guy.
A
there's
wonderful
no
guy.
question.
Like, it's one of those people that you'd say, you know what? This is the kind of person you would just love to be friends with. He's
Well,
as nice off air as he is on
He's
air.
a mensch.
well,
as you say.
the late Mel Farr was my neighbor.
Oh, really? How
He
was
is a
he?
great guy.
And
Mel Farr Ford.
I used to say the same thing about the Lions. He looked at me. He said Lions were good to him. It's a Ford family. Couldn't say anything bad about
Mel
him.
Farr Ford.
Yes. So
He had the best ads.
Yeah.
He was
had
a
fun
legend.
ads. He was
His
like
ads
those
were the best.
Superman ads.
Mel Farr Superstar, wasn't it?
Yeah.
That guy was great. He was
Yeah.
fabulous.
And then, but then you look at what football does to some of these folks. You look at Lim Barney and the mess that he's in with dementia and the family squabbling over whatever they squabbling over. Man, I can't blame these kids that play for these colleges. They pay them. One thing I like about Harbaugh is pay them. Pay them. He's saying go and form a union. I don't know about that, but
Why not?
well, I think the problem you got some kids going to be making $1 million a year. You got another kid that's not making anything.
Yeah. Well, I think some teams are trying to have some parity there where everybody gets. I mean, look, the stars are going to make more, but everyone should get something. I mean, I think it's great. I mean, it's such big business. I mean, the University of Michigan, the football program brings in so much money. They're paying the coach $10 million. No professor, no president is making
the ex quarterback for USC that won the Heisman 2 years ago with Caleb Williams. He has a penthouse. It's $15 million worth $15 million he's living in. It's like,
where's that?
In LA.
That's
Can we come over?
Yeah.
So Reggie Bush, they took his Heisman Trophy from for what he got, a couple thousands of dollars. Oh man, so but anyway, we got our guests.
All right, we want to do a commercial.
Yeah, let's do a commercial.
Oh, I have to say, it's a fun show.
All right,
it's exciting.
We're just getting
I
started.
think Adolph's positivity is.
Thanks, Charles, for letting me use your gardening supplies. I'll make sure I put it back in the garage. Man, tending to that lawn is a lot of work.
Tell you the truth, Jim, I'm more concerned about keeping this house.
What's going on?
Well, Sarah lost her job 2 months ago, right?
Yeah.
Since we lost that income, the bills have been piling up, and we're so far behind. I don't want to lose the house because of back taxes. I don't know what to do.
I understand. The same thing happened to my sister and her husband when he lost his job. Do you know that the Wayne County Treasurer has plans and programs to help people stay in their homes?
No, I didn't. Tell me about it.
Yeah, go to www.treasure.waynecounty.com to see if you qualify.
What's that site again?
www.treasure.waynecounty.com.
Got it.
Because I live in Detroit, I was able to get tuition-free college through the Detroit Promise. I feel very fortunate working with the Detroit Promise. They were able to afford me so many opportunities. I'm currently studying media production and journalism at University of Michigan Dearborn. I'm looking to take my talents further into the production industry, short films. I love working with people here, and this is where I want to be. And that's why I'm Detroit for life.
Well, we're back. And before we left, I introduced Justice Bernstein. How you doing?
Richard Bernstein.
I'm wonderful. I'm enjoying this immensely.
Who came from the famous 1-800 call Sam and law firm.
I grew up watching those commercials. So it's like, yes.
Right. Richard used to be in those commercials, and now
Now it has been.
in 2014 he was elected to the Michigan State Supreme Court as he's a justice. He was really nominated, and I want to ask you about this. But and then in 2022 you were reelected again to an 8-year term. But you were the way it works in the state is that the Democratic Party nominates a couple people, and then the Republicans do the same. How is that in terms of how that plays out on the bench? Is it very partisan
No,
in terms of?
it really isn't. It really isn't, because the terms are so long that people really focus on the law and they focus on what is right. So it doesn't play a role in this. Like, you really don't find that, you know, politics enters too much into this.
But there are rulings. I mean, we have some controversial, you know, we have abortion and all that kind of stuff, and sometimes it gets down to.
But you have to look at
lines.
well, you have to look at people that one of your colleagues used to be a client of mine when he was a circuit court judge, Brian Zarn.
Oh, really?
Yeah, that's my
No
guy.
kidding.
Yeah,
No
listen,
kidding.
He's
a
to
good
the
man.
left,
He's a good
he's
guy.
to the right.
Yeah.
But he was a great judge in
Yeah.
the circuit court. You know?
Yeah, it's a good
And
man too.
Is
Yeah,
that Oakland or Wayne?
he was in Wayne.
Wayne. Okay.
Yeah, but it's some of the things I didn't agree with him, but political. You know, but we could agree to disagree. You know, those
Right.
kind of things.
Mhm.
Now you got folks saying, "Oh, he's a Republican, or he's a Democrat, or he's driving right, or he's driving left." It's like, is that how the court here? It's not like Wisconsin where they're gonna shoot each other in Wisconsin over several issues.
No,
Well,
our
our court here.
Our
Well-
court gets along. People like each other. It's actually a nice environment.
Well,
And
how
it's a
does
good
that work
place.
in terms of, okay, you have a really big case
Right.
before you guys, you don't have to talk specifically about a case,
Sure.
but you have a very big case. Do you guys all powwow together and
Yeah,
sit around and
people sit
discuss
and
it?
talk about it and debate it and discuss it.
And are those debates ever kind of heated
Not
or?
really. It's people are very respectful of each other. They're very courteous and kind, and people really like each other. It's a nice crowd. People value each other. They like each other. It's a genuinely good group of people, and people enjoy the debate. They enjoy the discussion. They enjoy kind of trying to figure out what the best way is to navigate the process. But it's not anything where it's just overly partisan and people do things from a partisan perspective. It's completely based on people's viewpoints, their opinions, how they interpret the law, all of that.
And you being blind.
Yes.
You have to, how do you prep for cases? How do you write? How does that all work?
I have
Explain.
I kind of memorize everything.
That's interesting.
So yes, if we
Picture
have
you.
like 25, I'm sorry. So if we have like 25 cases, usually every week, I internalize all of them, memorize all of them. So what happens is that, you can't use Braille because it's too much material. And you can't really use your computer because you're not able to communicate with your colleagues. So I actually have to memorize and internalize all the various materials and know them backwards and forwards. So that way, I get my mental cue, which would be like, they'll say, okay, this was case 18. And they'll say case 18 is a carjacking on Woodward that resulted in 2 homicides. When I hear carjacking on Woodward resulting in 2 homicides, that's my mental cue. And I'm able to recall the case in its entirety, as well as all the common law cases that either work for me or work against me.
Yeah, when you got accepted to law school, I guess, how did you prepare?
It was a brutal process because they hadn't really had many blind people before. So it was the same way. I would have a reader and we would have to internalize all the various materials. And ultimately, I would memorize all the cases and all the issues that we would be studying and commit that to memory. And that's why I did what I did. I basically it's such a difficult experience, being blind, going through that process, that I wanted to do something meaningful. I believe that if I could graduate from law school and I could do something that had meaning, that had purpose, that would make life
I
better.
went to school as undergrad with 2 blind classmates, female and a male, and I, very smart, that photographic memory. Didn't see the young lady for 10 years. I saw her downtown. She worked at Blue Cross. I hadn't talked to her in 10 years. All I said was hi. She
knew who you were.
Knew who I
Yes,
was.
based off of the voice.
Yes,
Sure.
yes.
Yeah, it's a lot of internalization, and you got to want it, and you got to really work for it. It's very tough. Nothing comes easy.
I asked you, a friend of mine asked me to ask you, and you had an interesting question. My friend Marty Greenberg had asked me to ask you, how do you dream?
So blind people you can only dream what you know, right? So it's kind of like, ultimately it's kind of like you don't dream anything differently from what you experience during the day. So ultimately you dream in darkness and you dream in sound.
It's all audio.
Exactly. Because you don't have extrasensory perceptions. It's basically whatever you experience during the day is how you're going to dream at night.
And you were blind from birth.
That's correct.
And so I remember you came out, you was in the Ford building one day and we did an interview, and then you came downstairs and it was about 5:30, you were waiting for your driver and you looked around and you said, oh my God, this city is so alive. And I said, well, how do you know? And what was
you
it
pick
that
up other cues. There's energy, there's excitement. You can feel people, you can feel the presence of people,
you
can hear their voices, you can just sense the city and what's happening. There's an energy and a pulse and a vibrancy that really can be captivating and very exciting. And you figure it out that way, and you experience life kind of through that perspective.
So if you can walk down the street, somebody says hi, and you know them, their name pop up in your head.
You'll know. I mean, if you can recognize the voice, yes, you'll know. You'll be able to do it based off of voice.
So we've had another comment that they said Richard loves positivity.
We try, and
I like
depending
that.
on the day.
And how can you not be a positive guy running 26 marathons?
Yes, and an Ironman.
And an Ironman.
Yes.
And my question to you, maybe even a comment, as a former police officer, you took some heat for saying that you support law enforcement.
It's a good question. I like it. This is a great show. You know what? I gotta tell you, this is a great show. You kind of dive into it. I love it. Well, it's an interesting perspective. And, my approach to things is that, ultimately the way that you have to approach it is that we all do the best that we can, right? We all do the best that we can. And we approach life from our own perspective and from how we approach, how we see things. And all I had really meant from that comment, I didn't want to weigh in and create a controversy, but all that I really meant from that comment is that people who go into the military or people who go into service, and it's the idea of service, you always want to represent and recognize the good folks that are doing good work when they want to serve others, right? If you decide that you want to live a life of public service and you're doing it for the right reasons, all I really meant by that was that people that want to do public service, no matter what it is, we should allow for those people to be recognized for the good work and sacrifices that they make.
Should not be a controversial statement.
Oh well,
Well, I can imagine
but
that
it can be.
Can be. Yeah.
Always, it can be.
Can be, and
We-
it
we
was.
gonna-
And it
we-
was.
We're gonna take a break. This is Detroit in black and white. We're gonna come back.
This will definitely get people excited.
We got Justice Richard Bernstein.
Richard
We got
Bernstein.
Allan
And then
Lengel.
we want to talk
Jim
to Richard
Nardone.
about, we were going to have a guest today, Mr. Craighead.
Yeah, and I asked the justice about that, and we're gonna get in
We're
there.
going to talk
Oh,
here.
yeah.
48 years,
This is an
52 years,
this is an exciting
15
show.
years. And people serving time that they shouldn't be serving time. We'll be right back.
I was just working jobs and jobs. It wasn't a career. We were just living paycheck if I was making it to the next paycheck. By me going through the program and obtaining my GED, I have more job opportunities, better job opportunities. I got paid to get my GED, and now I have a great job with benefits working for the Detroit Police Department. Detroit had my back.
Thanks, Charles, for letting me use your garden supplies. I'll make sure I put it back in the garage. Man, tending to that lawn is a lot of work.
Tell you the truth, Jim, I'm more concerned about keeping this house.
What's going on?
Well, you know, Sarah lost her job 2 months ago, right?
Yeah.
Since we lost that income, the bills have been piling up, and we're so far behind. I don't want to lose the house because of back taxes. I don't know what to do.
I understand. The same thing happened to my sister and her husband when he lost his job. Do you know that the Wayne County Treasurer has plans and programs to help people stay in their homes?
No, I didn't. Tell me about it.
Yeah, go to www.treasure.waynecounty.com and see if you qualify.
What's that site again?
www.treasure.waynecounty.com.
Got it.
So, yeah, the justice say we're negative. Yeah, we are negative because there's a lot of negative things,
Well, I just got a text that said that's a positive show because Justice Bernstein is on.
Oh, well, that's very kind.
Okay.
Upbeat. All right.
Okay,
So we,
go ahead, Al.
so we want to talk about, we're having a
Yeah,
guest
Mark
today.
Craighead, served time. We was gonna have him. He that got sold in. Wanted him to come here to McShane, and he's having some issues. But I'm just reading all these articles around the country where this one guy, they just settled with him $25 million for 48 years for a rape he didn't commit, and found out that the police and the prosecutor lied on the guy. And man, how do we?
It's a huge problem. It's a huge problem. It's actually a U.S. Department of Justice statistic that says that 15% of the incarcerated population are innocent.
Wow.
15%. That's coming from the
crazy.
Department of Justice.
Shouldn't
So
we
this is a
prosecute
huge-
the prosecutors?
Well, that's a big issue.
Yeah.
I mean, the question
They did
is,
that here in Detroit with when they arrested the guys right after September 11th. They arrested 4 people and they said it was part of a sleeper cell. They prosecuted them for terrorism, and then it came out that the prosecutor held back some information that would have helped the defense. Those terrorism charges were dropped, and they ended up charging the prosecutor with some crimes because of that. He was.
Did they serve? Did
he was
serve
acquitted.
time?
He was
Of course.
acquitted.
I almost think that 15% sounds like propaganda to me. I'm sure there's a portion. As a former police officer, it happens, right?
It
But
happens.
15% is a lot, is a big
No,
number.
it's not. I think it's more than 15%.
Do you really?
Yes. You know, people. Oh man, and then you get these prosecutors that didn't have anything to do with the case originally, but they double down, triple down. Say, I don't know, won't do a DNA test. I don't want to do this. Don't want to do that. Hey, when is enough, if they got to serve some time for lying on a person.
well, I think that you have to go to the root of it, which is people need representation. You've got to make sure that folks have representation. So if when people get arrested, you've got to make sure that this general sense that just because you're arrested doesn't mean you're guilty of anything. So you have to make sure that people have the representation that they need. Now, I've written.
Do they get good? I mean, there's
I don't
some
think
question
they're
about good representation. Also, some of
None.
these lawyers have so many cases, they get paid. They don't feel like they get
they
paid
play
enough.
out.
And
And
they
they
don't,
play
yeah,
out.
and they don't.
And they play
Yeah,
out.
good
And then
representation.
to deal with what Jim was saying, Detroit has a list of cops that they won't let testify because they know they lie.
Right.
It's
They
called
lie.
a giglio. It's referred to as giglio,
Right.
which takes you off a bill. There's police officers all over this town that cannot go to court. And I give Detroit PD credit for posting those names.
And the late Judge Leonard Townsend told me, he said he used to tell them that certain police officers that came to his court, he could tell they lie all the damn time.
I think there's a little bit. I think the general sense that we really have to focus on. I'll give you an example. So one of the cases I was most proud of was a wrongful conviction case. There were two African American young men who were sentenced to life without parole, but they didn't do it. They were completely innocent. And I actually wrote the opinion that ultimately gave them their freedom. So I was very proud of that. That was why I do this work, right? Where you have two gentlemen who were completely innocent of crime, who were serving literally, it was their life sentence. And it took 18 years, but we were able to free them. And that's why we do what we do, right? But you have to have good judges who are going to catch this.
18 years.
18 years. And they were completely
Tell us
innocent.
about the Taylor issue.
They
They
were
were completely innocent. So people have to realize, this happens a lot, but you need good judges who are willing to catch it, willing to look at it, willing to investigate, like our office did.
Or about 15 years ago, 4 young black men, teenagers, they were teenagers, got arrested in Taylor for the murder of this woman who happened to be white. But they was on their way to college. They wasn't there at these townhouses anyway. They was locked up in the Taylor jail. I talked to their parents. We had to protest to do whatever. Kim Worthy, it was doubling down. Now that's a former client of mine, but she was adamant about throwing the key away against these young guys.
Right.
Come to find out, guess what? They didn't do it. But got no apology from the police department. The mayor of Taylor said, "Oh, so what? They serve a little time in jail." It's like it was no big deal.
It's outrageous. One day is too many days. When
You know what happened? One scholarship was rescinded by the university because he got a football scholarship. 2 missed the deadline to go to school, so they was punished. They was punished, and nobody it was no big deal. But here we had Kim Worthy, her chief prosecutor, come and tell the judge, "Oh, we're gonna let them. We don't oppose bail." The judge said, "I've been a judge 20 years in this court. I've never heard of anybody getting bail for first-degree murder. Either you charge them or you let them go." Guess what? They let them go. Then several months later, guess what? They got the right people.
The sad reality is, though, it just kind of stays with them, because if you Google their name,
there it
They're
is.
still in the newspaper.
Right.
And then they have to explain that to everybody forever.
Here's
Yeah,
a
it's
question
really
that one of our listeners, Sanford Plotkin, who's an attorney, says, "Why won't Michigan provide it's supposed to be adequate funds for indigent defense?"
It's a big issue.
What?
This has been going on for a long time. It's
Yeah.
a legislative issue. So you got to make sure that you fund public defenders and make sure that these entities are
Is that
funded.
the state legislature? That's
Yeah,
not,
it's a state issue.
So
correct.
they don't. Why isn't that being addressed?
It should be.
Because some people because some of these elected officials is adamant about whether if you charge somebody, they must be guilty. Why are we going to spend taxpayers' dollars to represent them, let them get their own attorneys, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera?
It should be.
It's like an assembly line.
Yeah,
Right.
it should be. There's no reason why that's not being addressed, and the legislature should be focusing on this. But what happens is it's kind of up to the individual counties to provide legal services. So you have kind of a patchwork. So you want to make sure that people have the resources necessary to have a defense. Right? And also, it's not just the lawyers. It's also to conduct an investigation, right? The state has unlimited resources. Right? Think about it. Like the state has resources that are completely unlimited. But what happens is that if a defendant wants to have access to that, they've got to petition the court just to get an investigator, and they have to petition and
if you don't have the money,
and the court will, and a lot of times the court turns it down.
And some of these attorneys are not qualified. Why don't they do it like when you have a driver's license, when you got to take a test when?
But it's not always it's not always the attorneys, it's the resources they have. So for example, if you need to do an investigation, like for example, you have to do your own canvassing, you know, the state isn't going to give you the resources or the money to do it. So if you have the ability,
so they tie your attorney hands behind his back or her back,
the attorney has to
and
go,
then they beat you up.
Well, right, the attorney has to go before the judge and say, Your Honor, you know, look, we need to conduct our own adequate investigation. And a lot of times the judge will say no.
But if I got 40 cases, I'm a public defender, and here come Allan. You know, Allan, you B&E caught with heroin and stuff.
That's kind of how Allan rolls.
Sounds familiar.
That's how Allan.
Allan is.
You know what? That's how
Allan is the winter time. You don't have a place to stay. I can get you 3 months room and board. That's basically 3 meals a day.
Wasn't that what happened to Mr. Craighead? He fled out reduced.
Tell us that case. What was the story?
Well, I don't want to. You know what? I want him here.
Okay.
You know, because when you start
You're
doing
gonna miss
the
him.
third,
Sure, but he took a deal, and now
and they fought him.
It's about good representation. It's not about a defense, it's about a good defense.
But
and I think that's what we're talking about.
Here, Kenneth Reed says here, he says the expungement process in Michigan is a hot mess. Also, do you have any familiarity with the expungement?
I think expungement is an excellent thing, and it should be done as much as possible.
Is it not being carried out properly?
I don't
or
see it being a mess, but
I hear a lot of complaints of people with it
just depends on what it's for.
No violent crimes can't get expunged.
Which ones are that? Like who's not? I mean, the idea is that you should be able to give people a clean slate, get it off their record, so that way you can, when you go for a job, you can say, look, I don't have any record, never been arrested, and you can move on with your life. Clean slate is very important. Let people have a second chance and let people move on with their life and not make this have to kind of, harness them forever. There's just no reason.
Speaking of second chances, the young man, call him a man that killed 10 people in Buffalo, pled guilty to homicide and received a life sentence. Now the federal government, the Biden administration, is charging him with a death sentence.
Burning. That's, I think, executed.
For
he
executed
a hate crime. They're charged with a hate crime. Well, but the question is, why him? Why him and nobody else? Why? It's a political. It's
always been political.
And how much will that
cost?
But
it was an execution. He mowed down 10 people, 8 people, just because they were black.
I'm not defending him in any way, shape,
way
or
with
form,
the guy that went to the synagogue and shot all those folks. He should get the death penalty. But the death penalty been a problem. And we know that some people that have been executed shouldn't have been executed.
They were innocent.
Well, if they're part of that 15%,
or when Bill Clinton was running for president, when he was the governor of Arkansas, they had a young African American on death row. He went back. He wouldn't commute his sentence. The guy had an IQ of 50. He had his dessert. And he said, I'm full. This last meal, he said, I'm gonna save this for tomorrow. I tell you, it wasn't no tomorrow. He's being executed. I say, why would you execute somebody that got the IQ of a child or a mental capacity that
goes back to Dukakis, right? Wasn't that Willie Horton? That
No, it goes back
I
to
mean, sure.
it goes back to the state of Georgia in 1948 when they executed a 14-year-old. So you don't do that. It's just bad news. Getting back to you, Jim, I think that they did the right thing. Dylan Roof in South Carolina should have got the death penalty. Yeah.
I'm not arguing about the death penalty. I'm arguing about the process. So he went into state court, pled guilty.
And so the feds say, okay,
we're going to punish him.
We're going to punish.
Is that any different than up there in Oakland County, what you're trying to do? Is that kind of similar to you?
To the Cromleys?
Yes.
That is political. They got the. How long are you going to keep these the parents in jail?
Oh, I can't comment on that.
No, I threw that out there. You know what?
But you guys can definitely talk about
it.
But
I ask Allan that all the time.
Yeah.
But Vanessa, who's an attorney that's not here, I said, how long are they going to keep these people in jail?
I mean, look, that case should have been dealt with already. It should have been pleaded out. It should have, I mean, they've already.
Oakland County Jail is Guantanamo Bay now.
Yeah, they
could have.
I mean, look, they were arrested in November of 2021. They've been in prison or jail now, the county jail, for more than 2 years. So they're already, without being tried, they're already serving their sentence. And, it's going to get to the point.
They're the worst parents in the world. We all agree on that. We all agree on that. But they didn't pull the trigger. And I blame, there's a lot of people blame Oxford officials. They should have looked in the book bag. They had all kinds of signs that this young man.
Just for the record, I'm not commenting, but you guys can please talk. I just want to say for the record,
yourselves.
Exactly. Just for the record, I'm not stating anything.
And I wouldn't even have a problem with. I don't have a problem with the penalty. I don't have a problem with the. I'm not really in favor of the death penalty, but it looks like overkill to go back after somebody pled guilty to murder, and to go back and say, well, that's not enough. Buffalo, that's not enough. Let's kill the kid. He's 20 years old, right?
Well, anyway, we're gonna take another break, and then we'll come back and the final countdown to Detroit in Black and White. Justice Richard Bernstein.
This show's a great show.
Yeah.
How long does it go for?
We're almost there.
Keep going.
We can keep going.
Detroit itself offers a lot. You just got to be willing to do it. People don't know what you need unless you open your mouth and say, I need help. What inspired me to get my GED it was always a goal of mine. But what made it possible for me to get it was the city of Detroit. They gave you everything you needed to succeed. Just pick up the phone because you already got it in your hand. Get on the website. Detroit for life.
I guess you do.
Because I live in Detroit, I was able to get tuition-free college through the Detroit Promise. I feel very fortunate working with the Detroit Promise. They were able to afford me so many opportunities. I'm currently studying media production and journalism at University of Michigan Dearborn. I'm looking to take my talents further into the production industry, short films. I love working with people here, and this is where I want to be. And that's why I'm Detroit for life.
All right, we are back here. When Adolph has stepped out for a minute, but we're back with Justice Richard Bernstein from the Michigan Supreme Court.
A great show.
Yeah,
It's been a lot of fun. And I got I love meeting you. What a wonderful guy. I mean, just a wonderful guy.
So here's another guy. Here's another one of our viewers who's saying, Timothy Square Bay, it takes like 4 to 5 years to get your record expunged in Michigan if you're not paying for it yourself. Is that, have you heard anything?
That sounds about right. Yeah. I mean, it's
a long time though. Why so long?
We have to work on it. I think this is a backlog because of COVID and the courts in general, but I think this needs to be a priority. We need to kind of.
And what does it take? Is there an investigation done on an individual?
No. If it meets a certain criteria and the criteria is met, then you're able to do.
So you have a marijuana conviction, or you have a assault conviction.
Exactly.
Those are automatic.
Yeah,
now, right?
But it still has to be done through the court, though, and they're a little backlogged. So one of the things I'm going to be doing, which I'm excited about, is the next couple of weeks, we're looking at. I'm going to be doing expungements, so I'm excited about that.
Oh, really?
I'm going to probably try to set up in Wayne County and just help them move those along.
Oh, nice.
And
Any
it's-
advice to people who are looking for it? There's obviously limits to what can be expunged.
Sure, but there's expungement fairs, and you should go and do it. This is a very worthwhile thing to have your record expunged. It gives you a totally new lease on life. It lets you basically. So let me give you an example. Once it's expunged, let me give you an example how important it is. If someone says to you, if you're applying for a job, have you ever been arrested? You can say no, because expungement means it never happened. Right? It's like an annulment.
So you're not lying. Huh?
No, if someone says, have you ever been arrested? You can say no, because for all intents and purposes, you've never been, because it's expunged, meaning it's gone.
So what happened to that 5-year void on your resume?
Well, then that's a different story, but you can divulge what you want. But the point of it is, if I ask you and you've been expunged, have you ever been convicted of a crime? The answer is going to be no, I have never been convicted of a crime. Period.
And what crimes are there? Some crimes that are absolute you cannot expunge.
It's a little tough when you start getting into crimes that are deemed to be violent. So, like, for example, a lot of times, like if you commit like an armed robbery or things of that sort, that might be a little complicated.
That's a tougher one.
That might be a little tougher.
Murder, rape.
Yeah, I think anything that deals with, certain types of offenses, but I don't want to limit it. I want.
Is that hardened in terms of? Is there a line that says you
there's
cannot?
Like specific statutes that go into it, but like for example, like if you let's say you rob a store, right? You're an armed robber, that kind of thing. That might be a little bit more complicated, but this is the most important thing I want people to know. Go and do it, right? Go and do it. Go and find out.
How do you have to get a lawyer? Or is there
all kinds of expungement fairs you can go to where they'll do it on the spot. You can reach out to legal aid. You can reach out to a lot of clinical programs. You can reach out to the court itself and find out how to do it. It's not that complicated. It's relatively straightforward. But the most important thing is, for the vast majority of people that are listening to us today, you can be expunged. If you have something that needs to be expunged, you should go and do it. What's the worst I can tell you? No. The vast majority of people can have a clean slate and can be expunged. The vast majority of people. So what I don't want people to do is think, oh, I'm not eligible, because that's not correct. I want people to say, you know what? I'm going to go get expunged. And only in certain very limited situations will they not allow for your case to be expunged.
So 90% of the people deserve a second chance, is what you're trying to
I think
say.
everybody deserves a second chance.
So there is a
the vast majority of people will be able to have their cases expunged.
There is a backlog, right?
And that's what I'm going to help.
And
with.
you're going to help.
I'm going to help with that. There's a backlog because you still have to.
When is that?
I'm going to try to do that hopefully the next couple of weeks. As soon as I get some time to get freed up, I'll go into court and just start processing some of those cases. What happens is it does have to be processed by the court. So there is a motion proceeding, and that's what's taking time, is because the courts are just overwhelmed.
Why can't anybody that was convicted of marijuana,
right,
smoking marijuana, selling marijuana, having marijuana, just a blanket like?
They should, but I think there's still a judicial process. Like, for example, it still has to be entered as a matter of record, right? It still has to be like a part of your case file. So you still have to get it on the record, and that just takes time. So it's not a big deal, but you need a judge to sit and just process.
You're talking about felonies, though.
Felonies and misdemeanors.
Oh, even misdemeanors?
Yeah, you still have to have, like, there's still a judicial proceeding, right? Like, there's still an actual proceeding that goes into it, where you basically have to allow for the judge to process the case and basically take the testimony and just get it on the record, and now it's official, right? You can't just, like, the court has to enter it and do it. Like an adoption, right? There's still a courtroom process that is required, and that just takes time. And so the key is that we got to get some judges just to sit down and go through these and let these things roll as quickly as possible.
Now, other question. Federal judges have no age limit.
Correct.
What, state judges? 70.
Right.
Should there be an age limit?
No, I don't think there should be an age limit. I think it's an electoral process. If people don't want you to serve, they don't have to elect you. So every election is a question as to whether you should serve.
Adolph thinks there should be one for the president.
An age limit?
I think that's a great. I think that's a great comment.
It is,
by
but
the
you can
justice
leave it up
because-
to the voters, right? Like
And that's
every.
But if
election,
you
they
got
can
somebody
age it.
95, I'm sorry.
Nikki Haley, are you with Nikki Haley then?
We had
No.
people on the federal bench who were in their 90s.
100.
Well, I know here in Detroit we had some, and I mean, so, you know, they were still pretty sharp. I mean, at some point, you know, they took senior status, and eventually, you know, some were told, okay, it's
Listen,
time.
some folks are sharp in their 80s, etc.,
Sure, exactly.
and even 90s. But then not many though. That when you hearing cases, etc., and plus the grind, there's no question.
Yeah, but the judges, like for example, here, an election can decide that, right? So if you're not reelected, you know, every election is kind of like a way to process it, right?
Is your father still practicing law?
Oh yeah, absolutely.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
So 70 in 2000.
Your father is practicing, so.
Yes, I mean he's managing and he plays a
Okay.
role.
And
yes.
your brother and sister are
Yes.
still in the firm.
Yes, absolutely.
Yeah. What do you see? What's the difference? Obviously, there's got to be a big difference between being part of the firm and now being a justice.
I think the old saying is, it's like, you know, when you, before becoming a judge, you realize that you were you were a part of the game, right? You were playing the game. You were an active participant in the game. Now you're the ref of the game. So that's the difference, right?
Okay.
It's hard to go from being, you know, a player to now a ref. And that's what good judges do, is they're good refs.
Yeah. What's more fun?
I think being the player in the game is more fun.
Yeah.
Because you get to make your arguments, you get to be very passionate, you get to fight for what you believe in. I think there's something really valuable in doing that.
So you don't put a time limit on how long you serve?
Well, we'll see. It depends on what the people say, right? The people will put, at the end of the day, the people will put the time limit on, you know, how long I serve for. The people will decide that.
And with that, we want to thank you.
Thank
for
you.
coming
This was
on
a
the
fun
show.
show.
Coming on
Here
the
is,
show.
by the way, our Max, as Justice Bernstein is right. The process works at the Detroit branch, NAACP. We help people monthly. So,
Okay. Okay.
So that's great to hear. So,
Allan, their final thought.
my final thoughts.
Is it an outrage thought? Like, is
No,
it-
no, it could be anything. I usually, I'm going to say, I'm excited about the Lions. You know, it's funny. Eric Olson, you know Eric. He owns McGee's,
Eric.
Thomas McGee's bar there in Eastern Market. He has banned the wearing of Matt Stafford jerseys tomorrow, all day. And there's going to be playoffs all day. And he's, you know, I mean, Eric.
Matt who?
Yeah.
Who?
Right. But I mean, look, Matt Stafford, I mean, he was here from 2009 to 2021. He was loyal.
That's why I don't like Detroit. They let him go, but they held Barry and
He has to go.
Yeah,
He
both
has
of
to
them
go.
has to go. You know, at the Lions.
In fairness, he didn't win a Super Bowl though.
Yeah, he did win a Super Bowl, and the Lions went
Like
3-13.
right? He went like the next year
with
wasn't it?
Goff. 3-13. But look, they're both great quarterbacks.
Didn't he go 0-16 too?
No, that was the year before.
Okay, what about you, Jim? Your final thought?
I love my sweatshirt from next door here in Quirktown,
Okay.
Detroit Die House.
You own part of the Die House?
I do not, but on Sunday I expect to
What
see
do you
some
pay
more.
for that.
Just a few bucks. On Sunday, I expect to see some other Detroit Die House
like
things
that.
down
It's
at.
cool.
It's unique.
It's very
And
cool.
Jared Goff is going to lead the Lions, like he has, to a big win on Sunday evening.
Okay, my prediction. No prediction.
Whitlock.
That yes. Justice Bernstein.
Well, I have to say I have enjoyed this immensely. And my final thought is this is a great podcast. And what people should know is this is an authentic Detroit podcast.
How can we be heard?
Authentic
And
Detroit
sing?
place. I
How
love
can
it.
we be heard and sing?
Okay, so we're also, I mean, this is live on a lot of different platforms. Facebook, Detroit in Black and White Facebook, Deadline Detroit Facebook. We have it on LinkedIn. We have it on YouTube on both channels. You'll be able to see it on both channels, YouTube, both on Facebook pages. And Deadline Detroit always posted every week. So there's multiple platforms. And Also, you can listen to it as a podcast on any platform that you listen to your podcast on. So we have a podcast. You can do it video or audio.
And we want to thank Justice Bernstein. Thank you, Richard Bernstein.
Thank you. I enjoyed this.
We're going to have you back again.
I would love it.
Thank you, Teresa, as usual. And
viewers.
And Vanessa's having a great time. And she'll be back next week. And this is Adolph Mongo, Jim Nardone, Allan Lengel, Detroit in Black and White.